to reveal the world as it really is, rather than as it's perceived. That's emes, that's truth. And that's what Purim is about. And that's what the month of Adar is about, is to learn how to see truth, how to see that which isn't there in a superficial sense. What I want to share with you and learn with you is a way of looking at reality. The way a Jew needs to look at reality, the way a Ben Torah needs to look at reality, and how to develop that, how to learn, how to view reality that way, and what do we mean by that? So let's start off with 5 dimensions of knowledge. How do you know something? If you say, I know that, how do you know? Well, you could know because you have information. That information could come from another person. The information could come from a book. It could come from any source of information. That's one. With information, there has to be a measure of trust. You've got to trust the source of information. There has to be an understanding of the reliability of information. Otherwise, you don't know it. It could be fake news. And we're seeing more and more how things that we thought were knowable are not necessarily knowable because we can't always rely on the source. So for information, it's cerebral, it's in your mind, it's cognitive. You know it because somebody's told you it's information. You've either checked the information or you trust the source of information. You can know something because of your senses. You know that it's cold tonight. You can feel that it's cold. Nobody has to tell you that it's cold. You know that it's cold. You can know something instinctually. You can sense instinctually that there's danger. You can sense instinctually that you're hungry. You can sense instinctually that you're tired. These are things you know for sure. Nobody has to tell you you're tired. Nobody has to give you an article to prove to you that you're hungry. You know that. That's instinctual. Your nervous system is able to give you that information. And then there's intuition, particularly people who are well-tuned intuition. You can know something in your heart. That intuition, that knowledge of intuition can be enormously powerful for those people who know how to access their intuition. And intuition is very different from instinct. Instinct is something you feel in your gut. Intuition is something you feel in your heart. And people often get confused between instinct and intuition, make very poor decisions based on, because my gut tells me. Gut is instinct. The gut instinct is designed to warn you of danger. Instinct is a survival system. So if you feel in your gut that you shouldn't be doing something or you shouldn't be going somewhere because it could be dangerous, that's something to listen to. But if you feel in your gut that you should marry this particular person or go out with this particular person or do this particular business deal, not a good idea to follow your gut. Because your gut is not expert in things that you need to do. It's expert in protecting you from things that you ought not to be doing. But intuition is different. If you have a strong intuition, and not everybody has strong intuition, if you have strong intuition, that can tell you what to do. You can have an intuitive sense that you ought to do something, invest in something, get into a relationship with somebody, travel somewhere, emigrate somewhere. There are intuitive senses that we have that are not instinct-based, they're in the heart. And we can tune into those and we can act. That's a source of knowledge. So we have a cognitive source, we have a physical source, our senses, we have a nervous system that operates, our gut, and we have our heart that is able to feel things, an emotive sense of information, of knowledge, of reality. And then there's the fifth one. And the fifth one, as we're going to see for us, is the most important of all. And that's emunah, to believe something. And we think of belief as something less than knowledge. If I know something because data tells me, then that's knowledge. Belief is maybe yes, maybe no. If I know something because my senses tell me I can see, I know that it's nighttime, I know that for sure. Belief can't be as strong as that. So we are trained, as in the West, we're trained to think of belief as a quasi-knowledge. It's not something we really know, it's something we can't know. And since we can't know it, we believe or we don't believe. Some people believe, some people don't believe. In whatever that belief is, belief in Hashem or belief in whatever, we're trained to think of belief as something of lesser certainty than the other 4 inputs of knowledge. And what we need to understand is that emunah is the highest form of certainty. That when you have emunah, and we can talk a little bit about how to grow emunah, how to develop emunah, because it needs development like any muscle, just as intuition. The senses, we're kind of, every animal has them, so we know how to gain knowledge using our senses. We know how to gain knowledge from information that we gather. These things are relatively easy. Instinct is a little harder, but we can do that too. Intuition is particularly difficult for us. As we become more sophisticated and more cognitively aware, our intuition becomes weaker, not stronger. And emunah is a feeling which is that soul knowledge. So you can know something in your fingertips or your eyes. You can know something in your head. You can know something in your gut. You can know something in your heart. And you can know something in your neshama. What does that mean, to know something in your neshama? To be so sure that I don't need any other form of information. Emunah is not what kicks in when you don't have another source of information. Emunah, belief, is not what kicks in when you have no cognitive information, no cognitive knowledge, no sensory knowledge, no intuitive knowledge, no instinctual knowledge. Then you've got to have emunah, because how else would you know? You've just got to believe in God because there's no other way to know. No, that's not a Jewish perception at all. With emunah, there is no need for any other way to know. To know that it's night now, that I need my eyes to be able to tell that. To know that I'm hungry, I need my gut to be able to tell me that I'm hungry. But to know that the Ribbono Shel Olam drives the world, I don't need any other source of information. My neshama is completely aligned with that. It resonates with that. It feels completely true. And that feeling of truth. Now, of course, there's a danger with that, because what happens if one's emunah is imaginary? And you can have emunah in all sorts of different things, and people can be very passionate and very extreme and fanatical about beliefs that are imaginary. So it becomes a dangerous area. We've got to figure out, how do we trust our emunah? How do we know that what we're feeling is in fact soul stuff? It's not just imagination. It's not just dimyon. Tonight we're going to discuss this idea, this element of emes, of truth. And here I was reading a very, very beautiful piece written by Rabbi Yeshua Heschel, who was he was a Hasidic Yid, and then he became a modern Jew, a modern Rov and professor in New York, where he lived for a long time and was known and became quite conservative from a religious perspective, but his training was in Torah, and he was part of the Hasidic dynasties. And perhaps had he gone a different route, might have become a Hasidic Rebbe. And he stems from the school of Kotsk. And he wrote a beautiful book in Yiddish, which is also translated into Hebrew, about the Kotsker Rebbe. And you've heard a lot about the Kotsker Rebbe and some of the things he says. And one of the things that Rabbi Yeshua Heschel says about the Kotsker Rebbe is how the Kotsker Rebbe defines truth, because they were big on truth. Kotskers came from the Pshischa school, which was just absolutely fanatical about emes, about truth. And he says there that the Kotsker would say, to say something that isn't false isn't true. To say it's nighttime now, that's not false, but that's not truth. Truth is something different. To say something which everybody knows, that you can say it's accurate, but it's not emes. It's not truth. Truth is something else. And he defines truth as living that which you believe. That's truth. Truth is not a statement. It's the way you live. Emes is living in alignment, not with what you see, because that's also not emes. We know the world you see is not the real world. The world you see is illusion. The world you see is very superficial. So there's another whole world going on, which we learn about in Torah all the time, but we don't always think about it this way. That we've got to be able to see so deep beneath the surface that the way we make our choices and the way we relate to the world and react to the world is not based on what we see. And it's not based on what we assume, and it's not based on what people say it should be or ought to be or is. It's based on what we believe in emunah. Believe is just it's a word that's, we use it in English because there's no other word, but it's a pity that we have to use that word. And that's why I prefer to use the word emunah wherever we can. That it's when you live your emunah, that's emes. Truth is living according to the living in the world as you believe it is. Belief again being, my soul knows this is true. My soul knows it's true. And therefore I'm living the way my soul knows is true. Not the way my eyes see. And not the way my ears hear. And not the way my fingers feel. I live the way my soul feels. And I react in the way the soul feels. Now what would we say if somebody says, for example, I deal with the world in the way I see it, and not the way I feel. So I see a stove, and the stove is turned on, but I don't touch it, I don't feel it, so I have no problem sitting on the stove, because it looks like a nice surface to sit on. But you idiot, can't you feel that you're burning yourself? No, I don't use my sense of touch. I don't use my sense of touch. What would you say about a person who says, I don't use my eyes, I only use my ears? I don't care what I see. If I don't hear anything, then it doesn't exist. You would say, you're an idiot, you're a fool, there's something wrong with you. And what about a person who says, I use my cognitive, I use my mind, I use my eyes and ears and the sense of touch, I use my instinct, I use my intuition, but I don't use my soul. That's also Meshugana. That your knowledge of reality, if you're not using your soul, is impaired. Just as if you're not using one of the other four methods of knowing something, and if you're excluding any one of those four, we would say you're crazy. If you exclude the fifth one, you're also crazy. And your reactions to the world can't be accurate. Because you're reacting to what you see, you're not reacting to what is. Because what is not what you see. What is not what you touch and feel. What is not what you feel intuitively and instinctually. That's part of it. But what really is, if you're thinking of the whole, of the integrated system of reality, for that you need a neshama, for that you need a soul. And so he says there, emes is revealing. When are you talking truth? You're talking truth when you reveal what can be seen only with the eye of emunah. And it's a beautiful phrase that he uses, that emunah has its own eyes. That when you use the eyes of emunah, you see the world differently. And to reveal what you see through the eyes of emunah, that's emes. Now you're talking truth. If you're revealing only what you see with the other four inputs of knowledge and information, then that's not emes, you're not giving the whole picture. But if you're able to communicate that which you sense with your soul, with your neshama, that which you're able to sense using the eye of emunah, then that becomes emes. And he says, for example, in the source sheet, you've got the psukim with the meraglim. He learns these psukim differently, and it's very fascinating. Uri'item et haaretz, Moshe says to the spies, go to the Eretz Israel and check it out. And you will see the land. Mahi, come back and check out, what is this land like? Ve'et ha'ama yoshev alea, and the nation that's living in it. Hachazakhu harafeh, is it strong or is it weak? Hama'athu imrav, is it small or is it many? Umaha ha'aretz ashu yoshev ba, what is the land like? He tells the meraglim, the spies. Hatovahi imra'a, is it good or is it bad? Umahe arim ashu yoshev bahen, and what about the cities in which they're dwelling? Habemachanaim b'mivtzarim, are they sitting in open camps or are they sitting in fortresses? Umaha ha'aretz, and what about the land? Hashminahi imraza, is it a fat land or a thin land? Hayesh ba'etzim ayin, does it have trees or doesn't it? V'itchazaktem ulekachtem mipri ha'aretz, and you should be strong and take from the fruit of the land. V'hayamim yemei bikurei anavim, it was the time of the harvesting of grapes when they went into Eretz Israel. You'll notice the way it's printed, as it is in the Chumash, and there's reason for this, that in some cases the word im is followed by a hyphen, and in some cases it isn't. So in the first posuk, in posuk Yudchet, Hama'athu imrav. Are they little, are they few people, or are they many? And Hatovahi imra, is the land good, or is it bad? Hyphen again. Hashmenahi imraza, is it fat or is it lean? Hayesh ba'etz imayin, does it have a tree or doesn't have a tree? In all these cases, there is a hyphen. When he talks about whether they live, Yoshev b'hena b'machanayim im b'mivtzarim, there you'll see it isn't. Are they in camps or are they in fortresses? All the cases where it's written with a hyphen, the Kotzke suggests has to be read differently. Look how it has to be read. Let's start with Posuk Yud Tet, then we'll come back to Yud Chet afterward. Uma'aretz ashehu yoshev ba. Go and see what the land is. Hatovahu imra'ah. Find it to be good even if it's bad. Not is it good or bad. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, I know it's good. Hashem told us it's good. I don't need you to go and tell us if it's good or not. I know it's good. So with my ein ha'emunah, with my eye of emunah, I look at Israel and I see a good land. You might go there and look with your physical eyes, and you might see a land that is ra'ah, a land that is bad. Your job is to find the good. Your job is to look at it through the eyes of your neshama and see that which the physical eye doesn't see, and come back and tell us what your soul discovered. I don't need you to tell us what the eye discovers. I need you to tell us what the soul discovers. Hashminahi imraza. If it is actually thin, if the land is actually sparse, Hashminahi, find the fatness and come back and explain to us how it's really fat, although it looks sparse. Hayesh ba'etz imayin. If you see there are no trees there, find the trees. Find the potential for trees. Find the capacity for it to become treed, and come back and tell us about that. And so in the first posuk as well, Hama'atu, is it a small nation? Imrav, even if it's a big nation, even if it's a great nation, Hama'atu, find their weakness and come back and report to us that when you look at the nation through your neshama, you'll see the weakness and you'll be able to report to us on the weakness. And so in this very conversation between Moshe and the Meraglim, you see this playing out, that there are different ways of looking at reality. I know, says Moshe, I know from the Ribbono Shel Olam, I know from God what this land is. And I believe that absolutely. I don't need spies for that. I just want the people to hear it. I want the people to hear it from you. So I want you to go with, and that's why I'm taking the greatest people that there were. Moshe didn't train them in spycraft. They hadn't been to spy school. He took the Gedolei Yisrael. He took the great people of Yisrael. He took the great Rabbonim and Talmidei Chachomim and Rosh Yeshivas and Nesim. And he said, you go, because I need you to look with the soul. That's what you need to look at. And of course we know they didn't. They came back with a physical, visual response to what they experienced and what they saw, and we can discuss at a different time as to why that happened. So what we need to be is to be able to see reality not as it appears to be. We need to understand that everything we see is illusion. We're only seeing part of the story because we can only see surface. We can't see beneath the surface. So already everything we see is inadequate. What we have to do is to be able to see things as we believe it is, using our ein ha'emunah, that eye of emunah, to be able to see the world, actually physically see it that way. It's not just to say, yes, I see one thing, but I know in my mind it's something else. That's not emunah. Emunah is when I look at it, what I see is what my soul sees. I don't see the other. I see something very, very differently. I've often talked about the fact that when we had to make the decision to come in Aliyah, and for years before that, I was thinking about it and wondering about it, and it was my son-in-law Yaakov who gave me the most important piece of advice that I've shared with many people since then. He said the only time to come to Eretz Yisrael on Aliyah is when you feel at home here. Because if you don't feel at home here, you'll compare Israel to other countries, and it will always come out second best. Israel is not better than any other country. It's worse than every other country. But when it's your home, you don't care. When you live in a home, you don't look at the other houses on the street and say, I would rather live in that house. It's your home. You don't look at your home and say, the furniture's a little old. I wish we had new furniture. It doesn't matter if the furniture's old. That's the furniture you've lived with for years and years. You're comfortable. It's home. You don't look at the paintings on the wall and say, same old paintings. They've been here for 10 years. That's what makes it home. You're willing to put up with all sorts of flaws in that which is yours. Flaws that you wouldn't put up with if it wasn't yours. If you go into a hotel room and one little thing isn't working, you're already calling maintenance. And in your house, everything's working? Everything's perfect? Your house is as good as you want your hotel room to be? No, a hotel room has to be perfect. And if I'm comparing two hotel rooms, I'll compare which one is more perfect than the other. And I compare 5 hotel rooms as to which one is better than the other. And my own house can be worse than all of them. And yet I want to go home afterwards. So when Eretz Yisrael is home, you're looking at Yisrael through different eyes. And that's when you can come, because you stop making those comparisons. Now you're relating to Israel by the way you feel. You're relating to Israel by the way your neshama feels. If you relate to Eretz Yisrael by the way your body feels, it's often going to be uncomfortable. It's not going to be as comfortable as other places. And you all know, and you all travel, you know what it is. You land in the United States and things work and people are relatively polite and all of a sudden you can breathe. But it doesn't take very long for your neshama to start feeling uncomfortable. You come back to Eretz Yisrael and immediately it's a little rougher, a little gruffer, things don't work as well, but your neshama's at home. That's what you need to be able to tune into, and that's what emunah means. Emunah means to be able to look, I'm talking just about Eretz Yisrael, and that's what the Meraglim, what the spies were told as to how to look at Eretz Yisrael. But this is not only about Eretz Yisrael, this is the way to look at the entire world. To look at the world through the Ein HaEmunah, through the eye of Emunah. Because, as the Kotzke says, is HaEmunah behira min HaRa'iyah. Emunah is actually more accurate and clearer than sight. As clear as sight is, the eye, the Ein HaEmunah, is a much clearer vision. One gets a clearer vision of reality than one does through the physical eye. And if one thinks of the senses metaphorically, then Ru'iyah, vision, you can see the surface, you can't see beneath the surface. Shmiyah, to listen, means to listen to the meaning of something. When you're listening, you're connecting dots, you're understanding patterns. When you're seeing, you're just seeing that which is available to you to be able to visualize. But when you're listening, you're employing imagination, you're connecting dots. Shmiyah is already listening at more of a soul level. And that's why it's interesting that when you can hear with the clarity of sight, then you're getting to the level of using the eye of Emunah. Because Emunah is about what you hear. Emunah is about Hashem's voice. It's about that which cannot be seen. So when you can see that which is unseen with as much clarity as you can see that which is seen, then you're into Emunah. When you can see that which can only be heard, and you can see it with the same clarity, you can hear the Gemara, you can hear a halacha, you can hear a piece of Torah and see it clearly, then you're using the Ein HaEmunah. And that's why at Matan Torah, what are we told? V'chol ha'am ro'im et ha'kolot. The Bnei Yisrael could see the sound. They could relate to the sound, they could relate to Hashem's presence, they could relate to the meaning, to the inner workings of reality with the same clarity that they could with vision. That was a moment that they had that. And Rashi says, Ro'im et hanishma she'i efshar lirot b'makom acher. It was the only time that the whole nation was able to see that which is normally can only be heard. And that capacity to be able to hear something That's at a deep level. What we hear penetrates us more deeply than vision. Vision is very impactful in the moment, but it doesn't stay with us. When we hear something, when we integrate something, if you read a book and you reread the book, that stays with you for life. If you see a movie, very often a couple of days later you don't even remember the name of the movie, don't fully remember the plot of the movie. It was very impactful when you watched it. That's what Re'io is. It's very impactful at the time that you see it, but it doesn't stay with you to the same degree as something which you've had to reason through, something which you've had to think through, something which you've had to follow through, something which you've had to discover yourself as an argument is explained to you, is put to you. That's the power of Shmiya. And when we're talking about the Ein HaEmunah, that eye of Emunah, it's almost the eye that can hear the sounds of reality, not just see the surface of reality, but that can hear the sounds of reality with the same clarity that the eye can see the sights of reality. Let's use that idea to understand Yitro. What are we told in the beginning of Parshas Yitro? Vayishma Yitro. Yitro heard. And Rashi says there, Ma shmu'a shama'uva. What did he hear? It doesn't say, it just says, and Yitro heard, and he came. What did he hear that made him come? This is a major emigration. This is not just leaving Midian and coming to Moshe Rabbeinu and following them through the Midbar for a period of time. This is giving up his culture. This is giving up his religion. This is giving up his status. This is giving up everything that he had and that he knew. What did he hear that made him do that? Says Rashi, Kriyat Yamsuf u'milchemet Amalek. He heard about Kriyas Yamsuf and the war of Amalek. Why those two things? Kriyas Yam, understand Kriyas Yamsuf. You heard Hashem split the sea. Do you need anything more than that? Do you need the war of Amalek as well? Why the two together? And what is the two together? Meir Soloveitchik explained to me once what his father, the Brisker Rov, how he explained that in the name of the Kotzker Rebbe, the same Kotzker Rebbe that we learned about before. The Kotzker Rebbe said what he learned was Amalek attacked the Jewish people. Did Amalek not hear about Kriyas Yamsuf? Did he not hear about the splitting of the Red Sea? Did he really think that he could beat the Jewish people when the Ribbono Shel Olam can do miracles like the splitting of the sea for them? What was in his head? What was in his mind? Says Yisro to himself, it's possible to see reality and not understand it. It's possible to look at reality through the visual eye and not see God at all. Yes, the sea split, it was a wind and it was tides and there was a tsunami and there are all sorts of ways to explain it. You're using your physical eyes. And if you're using your physical eyes, you're not seeing reality. What is reality? That the sea split and all the scientific explanations as to how it split, and those scientific explanations are valid. Hashem uses science, uses physics in order to make things happen. So clearly there was something. It wasn't just nothing. There was something Hashem uses the tools of science and nature to make things happen. So they're right. You're seeing that. If somebody was to say, I saw the tsunami, I saw the winds, this is no miracle. This is a scientific thing. We were able to predict it a few minutes before it happened. The seismographs were actually showing that there was about to be an earthquake in the area. We knew this was going to happen. No miracle. That's looking at it through physical eyes. But to understand that there's a Ribbono Shel Olam who you can't see, there's no evidence of the Ribbono Shel Olam. You've got to hear the message. You've got to notice how this comes. It happens when Bnei Israel daven, and they're desperate, and they daven, and they start moving into the water, and at the last minute, Hashem splits the sea, and every Jew gets across, and then just as all the Egyptians are in it, the sea closes. You've got to look at the whole picture and realize, yes, there's a physical way to explain this. I can explain this using my physical eyes, but my neshama knows the truth. The Ein HaEmunah, if I start with Emunah, if I know with Emunah, I know with my belief as to what the truth is, and I look at the world through the eye, through the lens of Emunah, I see something completely different. Amalek saw what I saw, says Yisro. He heard about Yamsuf, but he didn't see the divine, he didn't see the godliness in it. That's dangerous. I need to go and study, I need to go and learn how to see in a way that Amalek can't see. I need to go and learn how to see with the Ein HaEmunah. And so he goes to Moshe Rabbeinu to learn how to see. Because that's what it really is. That's the beauty of this understanding. If one now says to you, why are you learning Torah? Why every morning are you learning Torah? Why are you going to yeshiva? Why are you sitting in kollel? I'm doing that to learn how to see. That's it. I don't need any more. Because if I see reality as it really is, I will relate to reality as it really is. If I limit myself to the 4 inputs of information, I will only relate to the world with the 4 inputs of information, and I'll miss Kriyas Yamsuf. You could have something as miraculous and dramatic as Kriyas Yamsuf if I'm only looking at it through 4 lenses and not the 5th lens, which is the most important lens of all. I won't see reality. What I will see will be wrong. It will be an illusion. It's only when I can look at it through the Ein Emunah, through the lens of my Emunah, and I can use my neshama, I can use my soul to understand what's really happening. That's why I'm learning Torah. I'm learning Torah in order to develop the Ein HaEmunah, the ability to look at the world in that particular way. There's a pasuk in Yeshayahu, Su'u marom einechem uru'u mi vara ele. Lift up your eyes to the top and think to yourself, who created this? What is this all about? Who created this? And understand who the Ribbono Shel Olam is. I mentioned at the Medrash yesterday that we had the privilege of spending a wonderful time in Cape Town on vacation, and being in a rental there, just that had this beautiful, magnificent view, natural beauty at its best. And there was a talmid came down from Johannesburg to spend the day with us, and we went hiking a little bit out in nature, and he said, what do I do with all this beauty? How do I bring this into my avodas Hashem? How do I serve God with this? What am I meant to do with all of this? It's just so unbelievably amazing. What is the avodah? What do I do? Give me a pair of tefillin, I know what to do with it. You give me a Gemara, I know what to do with it. You give me a matzah on Pesach, I know what to do with it. You give me all of this, what am I meant to do with it? Su'u marom einechem. Just look upwards and say, Mi bara ele. You can look at it through your physical eyes and say, beautiful, gorgeous. You can look at it from a sensual perspective and say, the weather is magnificent. You can listen to the sounds of the ocean and say, it's so beautiful and it's so calming. You can feel instinctually what it's like. You can feel intuitively how beautiful it is. But you need to go a step further. Su'u marom einecha. You need to look at it through the eye of your neshama, experience the beauty of nature using the eye of your emunah, not using just your physical eye, and see something different, see something that you can't see with your physical eye. It's interesting that there's a piece that the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote in a sefer called Hayom Yom. Some of you will know the sefer. Hayom Yom is it's a little piece for every day of the year. Small little few lines for every day of the year. He wrote it back in the 1940s. And it was mostly from things that he'd learned from earlier Rabbeim, and some of them they're all very, very beautiful. And he writes on Yud Tet Cheshvan, he writes that the word Shema, we're talking about hearing, we're talking about listening, we're talking about Vayishma Yitro, what Yitro heard. We're talking about Ra'u et HaKolot, they could see the sounds. We talk about Shema Yisrael. What does it mean to hear? He says in the name of the Baal HaTanya, it's Rashi Tevot of Su'u Marom Einechem. Shin Mem Ayin refers to that pasuk in Yeshayahu. Listening means look up to the higher reaches of Hashem and see Hashem. That's what it means. Omer Marom velo Shamayim. It says Marom, it doesn't even say Shamayim, it doesn't say look to the sky. If you look to the sky, you're looking with your physical eyes. It says Marom, look to the highest of highs, where your physical eye can't get to. That's where you've got to look. Because if you're just looking at the sky, at the mountains, at the ocean, you're just seeing a physical sight, which is beautiful, magnificent. You can feel it intuitively, you can feel it instinctually, you can feel it emotionally, you can get excited. But what about the neshama? Can you really see everything if you're not using your neshama, if you're not using the ein emunah to see? Su'u marom einechem. And he says, Morim is hecher und hecher lahagia l'mayla min haseichel. Morim is higher and higher to get to a point which is beyond cognitive. Again, in terms of what we're discussing, that means getting to the place where you're using your neshama. This is, you're not using your mind anymore. You're now experiencing reality directly through your neshama. You're experiencing reality directly through your soul, not just through your mind. Morim, that word, su'u marom einechem, is hecher and hecher lagia l'mayla min hasechel. It's higher and higher. Go higher and higher with your neshama. V'zeh gufa lahavino b'seichel. And then you can understand it using your mind. Once you've been there with your neshama, you can use your mind to integrate it. As it says, uru'u, see. There's got to be the clarity of sight. But to get to that clarity of sight, you've got to allow your soul to soar to marom, to soar to those higher places where you can look at the world from up above, not look at the world from down below. And we know what that means just even in a physical sense of how different the world looks. Now we've got the images and we've got the first-hand testimonies of people who've seen the world from the moon, who've seen the world from very far away. And I remember a talk by Baz Aldrin when he said the most astonishing thing to him was standing on the moon was that he could put his thumb up and the earth disappeared behind his thumb. That's how small it is. That's a different way of looking. Just because you're further away, everything looks different. Perspectives are different. Your understanding of issues, the arguments, the tensions of the world become so irrelevant when you realize that the world can disappear behind your thumb. That's how small it is. And how small is each individual in that case. What you gain by that perspective. Now imagine the perspective you gain not by being on the moon, but by being at a place of marom, at being at a place of the highest of highest, where your soul can soar, where your body can't get to, where your eyes can't get to, but your soul can get there. And look at the world from that perspective. Now you see emes. Now you see the truth. Now you see what the world really looks like. And you understand what reality really means. And as the Kotzke said, emes then is not just knowing that. Emes is living according to what you've discovered, with using your soul rather than using your eyes. It's so completely different. And we know it kind of in various different ways. We can relate to one another on the basis of what we see with our eyes. And sometimes we relate to one another with what we feel in our hearts when we're truly empathetic, when we feel true love for another person. That's a completely different relation. We treat the person differently. What's different? Or you have a person who falls in love and starts treating his beloved in a different way from the way he treated her or she treated him 6 days before then. What's changed? I'm seeing something different. But there's nothing different. I'm the same person. Yes, but I'm seeing parts of you that I never saw before. And with what eyes are you seeing this, my darling? What are you seeing that you never saw before? What have I hidden from you? No, I see nothing different with my eyes. I see something different because now my heart is involved. I'm looking through the eyes of my heart. And when you look at somebody through the eyes of your heart, it's completely different. Not only do they look different, but you relate to them differently. If that's the difference between eyes and heart, how much is the difference between heart and soul? When you start looking at reality, at people, at others, at the world, through the Ein HaEmunah, to be able to look at the world through soul. And that's why even the Meraglim, when they came to Eretz Yisrael, they couldn't help but see the physical reality in front of them, and it was shocking. They looked at that and thought, how is this going to work? A little bit like we felt not so long ago with the threats of Hezbollah and the threats of Iran. You just looked at the facts, 150,000 rockets aimed at us. You looked at Iran and their threats and what they were saying. Hamas, we didn't notice. But where the real threat was, there was fear because we were looking at it through our physical eyes. And what happened then? Where were the 150,000 rockets? Yes, the army did an amazing job. But if we would have looked at it through the eyes of Emunah, we would have known they're nothing. There aren't 150,000 rockets. That's not what's there if you're looking at it through the Ein HaEmunah. And so as we approach Purim, what is Purim? Purim, we read Megillat Esther. What does that word mean? Legalot et haseter. Legalot, Megillah, to reveal that which is hidden. What is hidden is what you see only with the Ein HaNeshama, with the Ein of Emunah, with that eye of Emunah and the eye of your Neshama. That's what's hidden. That's what you see only using your soul. You can't see it using your eyes. And what do we do on Purim? We megaleh that which was nistar. We reveal that which was hidden, which, as we defined on the basis of the Kotzker Rebbe at the beginning of the Shiur, that's emes. To reveal the world as it really is, rather than as it's perceived. That's emes. That's truth. And that's what Purim is about, is to learn. And that's what the month of Adar is about, is to learn how to see truth. How to see that which isn't there in a superficial sense. And let's learn this Bnei Yisachar together. The Bnei Yisachar says that Esther was the end, sof l'nisim hamuflaim, v'hatchala l'nisim hamulubashim bateva. The period of Esther, Purim, was a pivotal moment in history. Because that was the moment that those types of miracles which could be seen with the physical eye stopped. And from then on, you had to use the Ein Emunah to be able to see miracles. From then on, you could only see miracles using your neshama. The miracle of Purim was dressed up in nature. But if you looked at it afterwards, as the story played out, and you listened to the message, and you heard what was under, you heard that which was not visible, you knew this was Hashem. It was obvious that it was Hashem. This was introduced to us as a tool by which to survive the period of the Galut, when we were going to go through a lot of hardship, and there would always be miracles behind the scenes. Always to use the capacity that we develop in the month of Adar on the Yom Tov of Purim, to use that capacity to be able to see reality with the Ein HaEmunah and notice the miracles which are not visible using only the physical eye. And he says in the third paragraph, and that's why Haman falls Pesach time. That to understand the connection between Adar and Nisan. Nisan is the time of open miracles. Adar is the time of closed miracles. And Adar and Nisan are next to each other. And Haman's downfall actually takes place in Nisan, so that we should realize it looks like an Adar miracle, but it's actually a Nisan miracle. It's actually very, very powerful. And we've quoted once before the Gemara in Beitza, where Rabbi Yochanan says, in the name of Rabbi Shimon, Harotzeh sheyitkaimu nechasav yita bahen eder. If you want your property to have sustenance, to be long-lasting, you should plant Eder trees in them. And there's a whole Gemara with Eder, but another way of pronouncing it is Adar. You should implant the lessons of Adar into your business. And the Bnei Yisachar goes on to say, Zehu sheramzu harotzeh sheyitkaimu nechasav yita bahem Eder, hainu yita veyasim betoch nechasav Hasechel hanishma min chodesh Adar. Embed in your business the lessons you learn from the month of Adar. To realize, don't look at the world with your physical eye, because if you look at your business with your physical eye, you'll see something very different from how you'll look at your business with a spiritual eye. Ki haosek bischorav v'nechasim v'yomar kochi v'otzem yadi asali et hachayil hazeh. If you use your physical eye, somebody will say, how did you make all this money? You'll say, I made some good investments. I had luck, I was smart, whatever. I invested in the right things at the right time. That's how I made all the money. I made the money because I invested just before the stock exchange went up. I made the money because I bought property in the place that afterwards became... And that's it. That's what you'll see with your physical eye. Ki haya davar b'teva shebacharti, I made physical choices. B'mistar ploni v'makom ploni, b'mischar ploni v'makom ploni, hine lo yitkamu nechasav. That way your business is not going to be sustainable in the long term, in the very long term. אבל אם ישים אל ליבו כי השגחת השם יתברך מלובש בטבע. But if you can use your other eye, if you can use ein ha'emunah and look at your business using your soul's eye, not your head's eye, you will see that Hashem has done miracles for you, packaged in natural causes. And that's the posuk that he's referring to in Dvorim, is to remember, not to say, I did it all myself, kochi v'otzim yodi, but v'zacharta et Hashem Elokecha, ki hu hanoten lecha koach la'asot chayil. Yes, you made all the right decisions, but who gave you the koach? And look how the Targum Onkelos explains it. V'titkari at Hashem Elokach, you'll remember Hashem. If you look at your business through your soul eyes, you will realize that it was Hashem hu yahiv lach itza lemikni nichsin. Where did you get the idea from to buy that particular share at that particular time? Where did you get the idea from to buy that property in that particular place? So some people might say, I did an analysis, it was all very, very smart. Another one will say, it was data-based, I used my computer logarithms, that's how it fit. Another person will say, it was mazel, I just had a feeling. Who gave you that feeling? Who implanted that to your intuition? If you look through the eyes of neshama, you realize where that comes from. This is Hashem. This is not something that's natural. It's delivered in nature, but it's not instigated in a natural way. And that's why Chazal made this Yom Tov in Adar just before the month of Nisan. Deika de mismach geula li geula adif and so on. Hainu lismoch inyan hashgacha v'hagula hanisteret legula haniglet. So that before we come to the dramatic miracles of Nisan, we've learned how to see the subtle miracles of Adar. Because it's too easy to be blinded by the drama of Nisan and to miss the beauty of Adar. So we have to be schooled in how to find miracle, how to look at the world, and how to look at reality through the Ein HaEmunah, and then you can go into Nisan, and then it all makes good sense. And then he says in the Hallel, when we say, Hoshia na, Hatzlicha na, what does na mean? Nun, Aleph. Says the Bnei Yisachar, the Nun is for Nisan, and the Aleph is for Adar. Hoshia na, save us Hashem using Nisar and Adar. Save us, Hatzlicho na, make us successful Hashem, na, Nisan and Adar. Hainu Hoshia v'Hatzlicha b'shtei ha'hanagot. Use both methods with us Hashem. In Hanagot Nisi, Nisan HaNiglim, giving us the miracles of Nisan that are obvious miracles, and Hanagot Nisi, Adar HaNistarim, and the miracles of Nisan. So when we say, Hoshia Hashem, save us Hashem, pull us out of trouble, save us in an instant, those are the miracles of Nisan. We want these dramatic miracles when we need them. But also Hatzlichona, just make us successful. May we invest, make our investment successful. We go to work, make our work successful. We raise our children, give us hatzlocha in raising our children. We want to find shidduchim for our children, give us hatzlocha. That's going to be the Adar way. It's not necessarily going to be the Nisan way. And Ana Hashem Oshiana, Ana Hashem Hatzlichana is asking Hashem to relate back to us, just as we understand you, Hashem, through our physical eyes and through our spiritual eyes, through our bodies and through our souls. We use all five senses. Yes, we get information from other sources of information that we trust. Yes, we get information through our senses. Yes, we get information through our instincts. We get information through our intuition. But most important of all, we get information through the eyes of our emunah. We get information through our neshamas, through our souls as well. So you too, Hashem, relate to us in that way. And on a day-to-day basis, give us the Adar miracles. And when we really get into trouble, do the Nisan miracle that we need as well to get us out of that trouble. And what more important time in modern history has there been than now for that tefillah, for this month of Adar, for the Purim that we're about to have, for this idea of Hoshiana and Atzlichana, which we said in Hallel yesterday. What time is there more than this to say to Hashem, keep up with the Adar miracles. You've been doing such nisim through us. We've read this report that came out of October the 7th, and we're only hearing the beginnings of it. And you read through it, and all you can say is, it has to have been Hashem. It doesn't make sense that there would be failure after failure after failure. That one thing fails, it can happen. Two things fail, it can happen. Three things fail already. That's already getting a bit much in a country that prided itself of its technology and its army and its intelligence, best in the world. Three things fail. But that everything fails? Nothing worked? That has to be Hashem. And that was the beginning of a new era, as we've mentioned before in these Shiurim and in others, an era for which we've paid a heavy sacrifice in Korbanot. But we're seeing already it's a new era, new things happening, that Am Yisrael relating to one another and to the land of Eretz Yisrael in a different way. The whole Jewish nation is so different from what we were 18 months ago. And that everything, all of this had to happen. We had to go through this. And we continue to go through this. The Adar miracles, just as in Purim, they had to go through the terrible time of Vashti and Achashverosh and then Haman. These were terrible times for the Jewish people. And then came the Yeshua. And to be able to see the bigger picture and to be able to see and understand, and for us to turn to Hashem and say, Ana Hashem, Hoshiana, Ribbon Hashem. Sometimes we get into a mess. Sometimes we go so low. Use miracles to pull us out of that. Use the miracles of Nisan to pull us out of that. And Ana Hashem Hatzlichana, as we start rebuilding ourselves, reconstructing ourselves, building a new future for ourselves as a nation and for ourselves as individuals, Hatzlichana, give us the Hatzlocha, give us the success that are the miracles of Adar. The success that if we only are willing to look with our spiritual eyes, with the eyes of our neshama, with the Ein HaEmunah, we will see those miracles every day of our lives. Keep those miracles flowing and we'll keep looking for them. And through your miracles that you keep flowing and our ability to see those miracles, because we're learning how to look at the world as the world really is, as the world is using Ein HaEmunah, not just using our physical eyes and ears and senses, but to use our total souls in seeing the world with clarity. It's not a belief in your head that I have this emunah, I have this belief of something or other that Mashiach will come one day. I have a belief, and I have a belief that Hashem will save me. It's a belief. Emunah means I see it, I feel it, I know it with absolute certainty. Ani ma'amin be'emunah shlema. That idea of emunah shlema, I believe absolutely. It's not partially. There's no doubt in it. It's an absolute belief. And I see it with the same clarity that I see the physical world in front of me. That whereas the people around me are looking at the world through physical eyes, I look at the world through the eyes of my soul, and I see the world differently. And I make different choices and I make different decisions. The way I respond, the way I act, the way I choose, the way I decide is all based on the information I'm getting. But not the information that my ears are getting, my eyes are getting, my fingers are getting, my gut is getting. I'm acting on the information that my neshama is getting, that my soul is getting. And the choices and decisions I make are different ones from anybody else. So I wish you all a wonderful month of Adar and a wonderful Purim, and look forward to talking about the month of Nisan when that comes around.